So I've added the password, and now I have two connections. They're pointing to the same database, but one is using the entity framework syntax, and the other is just using plain old vanilla ADO.NET, actually, where we just specified.
I still don't know why it broke.
So then you'll notice in the tutorial, they've called theirs default connection. So that's a keyword. That's what the identity package is looking for.
Would it be logical to use that? Better just to conform?
The bug.
It would be better to just keep that, because otherwise you have to reconfigure. You have to do some extra configuration.
What it says is assembly Microsoft ASP.NET identity in the framework as a higher version referenced assembly than the entity framework.
Does it give you an option to correct it?
It takes me out to Microsoft ASP.NET entity framework.dll.
I'll have to come and look at it.
Did you take anything out of your register page?
Nope. So the package has support for validation. So for example, by default, one of the things it's going to do, so it's got a property that we can set about only allowing alphanumeric usernames, which default is set to true. It also has a minimum length validator. So again, by default, it won't allow passwords less than 6 characters. That stuff's built in. Those are the defaults. You can override those if you want to. So that's on the user manager class, if you want to add your own custom validation rules. Now the other package, the other thing, we need to now install this OWIN middleware. We can do registration as we've set it up, but we won't be able to log anybody in. So we'll go back to our project and back to manage the NuGet packages. And this time if you search for identity.owin, we want to install this first version. So this is middleware. It requires, you can see on the right, it depends on the identity core. We've already installed that. It also has 3 support libraries: owin.security, owin.cookies, and owin.oauth. So this will install all of these. So just click install beside the first item in the list here, and it will install these 4 packages. Actually, it will install, 5 packages. And Visual Studio will give you an indicator when that's done. It doesn't take long. So that's added now about another 9 megs worth of support files. My project went from 32 megs to 41 megs. So once that's done, you can close the package manager.
It was the second one, right? Search identity. It was the one.
Yeah, when you search identity, it was the second one. So we could have installed it when we installed the others. I'm just sort of going through in the same order that they're laying it out. So let's try our register page and see what happens. We won't be able to log in yet, but we can try the registration. Okay, so I'm just going to compile my solution. So I'm going to go to my register page. Because it is missing a section declaration. Whoops. I think I accidentally removed my closing. Yeah. Oops. I accidentally removed my closing connection strings. Oh, hang on. No, yeah.
Okay.
So this section has to be inside of my connection strings tab. So the first thing I'm going to do is just click register and try and leave the form blank. So when I do that, it actually tells me I need a 6-character password. In fact, I'm going to add something. If we get an error, I want to use a different class. I want the class to be label danger, so the background's red. So if I go back into my code, if result succeeded is false, not only are we going to print the error, but I'm going to change the CSS class to label danger. Otherwise, the CSS class can be label info. So blue, if it's successful, actually maybe I don't want to make it blue. Maybe I want to make it green. Would probably be wise. There, success. So we use label danger. If there's an error, we'll use label success if it works properly. So let me try that again. Okay, so now we get red, which is good. So it will actually check the password, right? If I try and sign up with a 1-character password, it knows.
And that came with the package?
Yep.
6 characters?
Yep, that's the default in the user manager package. So now go ahead and try and create an account for yourself. My suggestion is we should all create an account with the same login. It would probably be a good idea. So as the weeks go on, if you forget your login, we actually know what it is.
So admin?
So let's use admin and password. We missed one thing in our connection string. It doesn't include the provider name, meaning we provided a connection string, but we didn't say what type of database it was. So in here, doesn't matter where in the tag it goes, we need the provider name equals system.data.sql client, because it's an SQL Server database. So we have to specify what type of database are we connecting to. So that attribute, I omitted the first time around, we need to have it in there. Now I can probably just refresh and it will resend my information if I click resend. So it tells me we were created successfully. It's green, no errors. It printed out the username here. Now, how do we know what actually happened? We better look. So if I go to Server Explorer and expand my connection and open up the tables, oh, look at that. That's pretty neat.
Oh, I didn't do it yet. Right.
So the identity package, when we create a user for the first time, if those tables don't exist, it actually builds them. So let's look at the users table. So by default, here are the fields. So email, whether the email is confirmed, well, we can actually look at the data. If I just right-click and choose Show Table Data. So I created another account before class. So here's my admin username. It uses a security stamp and a strongly hashed password. And even the IDs, those are the unique user IDs. So for your assignments, if you're tying data to a particular user, for example, a few of you are doing exercise logs where you'll have different users and each user can track their own exercise, you'll need to make sure in the exercise table or the workouts table that you use a string to store the user IDs because the values are not numeric. Okay? This will be your user ID value, that will be your foreign key. Any data that is tied to that particular user. So we've got that table. So our roles, we don't have any roles, we haven't set any up. So these tables are for doing authorization. So we can create roles and then we have a junction table where we can place one user in one role.
Would roles be kind of different levels?
Different levels. Right? We might have, for example, in an e-commerce site, which some of you are building, you might have administrators, customers, suppliers, for example. Okay. You can also do login auditing. It's not turned on by default, I don't think. So this would be, this would be if we've got third-party logins. Like we're going to authenticate through a social media provider, we're going to have to provide the key here. What's the user and what social media provider are they using, or what OAuth provider. So if we're doing basic authentication, we're really just using the users table, but the identity package builds out all of this stuff for us. So I'm going to try and sign up again. Let's see what happens now if I try and sign up again with that same. So now I'll sign up as admin 1. We'll see whether the package lets me create another account with that same username and a different password. So this functionality is already built in. If I run this through the debugger, we can kind of see step by step what's going on here. So I'll load admin. So we're creating a new store, uses entity framework, and a new instance of the manager class. So it tries to create a new user with the username of admin. And now we can evaluate our result. So result comes back as false. And we get one error back, which tells us that it's already taken. So we don't have to manually check for duplicate users. The identity package is going to do it for us. So they were smart enough when they built this, and they've evolved it over time, to build in the normal types of rules most applications would want. Yep, so we could have multiple errors, but this will display the first error in the collection is what you'll see.
So if it was the username one, and then some other one, username.
Yeah, so if you wanted to change that, what you'd have to do is you would have to iterate through, right? You need a loop, and you need to loop through for each error in result.errors, and then you would build a string that way, and then you could output it. So this is a simplified version. It's just going to show the first one.
Generally, there's always.
Well, I suppose, well, let's say we did this, right? I guess if we did it this way, if I used admin, I have to start it again. Let's say I used admin, but I also used less than 6 characters for the password,
Yeah, that's.
right? We're going to have 2 errors in that case. So we're probably going to get only the first error that the username already exists. Oh, okay. I guess it checks the password first. That's the first error in the collection. Okay, but we don't see that the username already exists. So we could use a loop here instead if you wanted to print out all of the errors.
Scroll up on that code. Okay, yeah, that does actually make sense, yeah. Because you're not actually passing the username until you're also passing the password and stuff.
Yeah. Well, actually, no, I find this strange because it tries to create the user first, but it doesn't give us a result until we call create with the password. Okay, so I guess that's how it's running. Okay. So if we go ahead, let's create a second account. Just want to make sure it's not going to try to rebuild the tables and wipe out what we've already got. So I'll put in admin2 and password2.
What would it?
So it says created successfully. And now if we just check our table data, so now I've got admin and admin2. So totally different security stamps, hashed passwords, excuse me, and IDs. So if we wanted to add additional fields, let's say you want users to also have to sign up with an email address or with a phone number. The way we would do this before we call create, we could just set those values here. If we had an email box, we could set the email value. So when we're calling create, it would pass in whatever properties we've already set on the user object plus the password.
And then you would just validate the front end that it's actually validated.
Yep. You could just use a type equals email, for example. So if you wanted things like email and phone number, you would just create those and populate that user object before you called create. And then it would include any properties of your user object. And the package would automatically map to email, phone number, for example. Okay. Are there any questions so far?
The only question I had was just when you right-click over your Server Explorer connection,
Yep.
List of things.
Yep.
I just got like copy, refresh, and properties. Is that something enabled or is it automatic?
So you can't expand?
No. So when you right-click over ASP net users,
Yep.
you get and then you went to show table data.
Yep.
I just get like copy, refresh, and properties.
So you don't have show table data? Okay. If you don't see it through here, you can open open Management Studio and connect your database that way.
Okay.
It should show you your table. You can check that way and make sure your tables are there.
Okay.
Okay, show the table data.
Okay, so what we're going to do, we're going to take a pause here. So we've now created accounts. When we come back, we need to look at how do we use OWIN to authenticate and log users in. And then when we can log users in, how are we going to set access control within the application? Brandon, question?
Yeah, I just need some help with this while we're operating.
Okay.
Yeah, same.
Okay. Okay, so let's pick up with this. We can sign up.
Yeah, no benefit from it
Well, we can create an account, so we got some benefit. We can create an account, and ASP.NET Identity built all the tables for us. So I'd say that's some benefit. That's a crap load of work that it saved us
I meant as a user.
as a user.
You create an account and you get the same information.
Okay. So we need to build a login page. So let's add a web form with a master page. We'll give it the name of login. So we'll build a login form. Similar to our registration page. Obviously, we don't have a confirm box. Yeah, we could do that. You could copy those two sections from the other page, sure.
And I say that as I remember how many problems copy paste caused me.
What in the blazes? Why are you doing that? Come on, show me ASP.
Make sure you've got your text mode equal to password. Then we'll put on a login button. And we'll create a new event handler for Click. So virtually the same as our registration page without the confirmation box. Be similar. The other thing we want to do, we'll finish the login page. What we'll want to do is basically build a private home page. So when users log in, they'll get a page that will contain links to the department's courses and students, but that page will be password protected. So that's where we'll go after a successful login. We'll take the user off there.
I got a huge distance between my text box and my label.
Would have to do with the classes you're using, most likely.
It's the same stuff as yours.
So we've added the OWIN package. One more we need to add. If we do a search for system web, so this is used to enable OWIN packages that run on IIS. So the last package we'll install, so again, we'll go to Manage NuGet Packages. And if you search for system web, all one word, we'll find Microsoft.owin.host.systemweb. So we will need to install this one. So we can close package manager. This is going to add a line to web.config. So it's going to say the file's been modified. Do you want to reload it? And I'll say yes. So it actually added this section of code in the runtime area. Now the OWIN library looks for a startup configuration. So we're going to need to add a new class file. And notice the template it's going to give us, when we install that, it creates a file called an OWIN startup class. So we'll need to do this. So in our solution, on our project, we're going to click Add New Item. So I'm going to add a new item. And what we want, it's in the web section, we want an OWIN startup class. It's going to be a small C# file. By default, the name will say startup1. Take out the 1 and just call it startup.cs. So we're going to need this class in order to do the user management, session management of authenticated users. Okay, so we'll call it startup.cs.
I'm sorry, what was the thing we had to add there?
Add a new item, and under web choose OWIN startup class and call it startup.cs. Take out the 1 that the wizard will generate by default. So it already, because it's of type startup class, we could make a generic class, but then we'd have to add in the references to Microsoft OWIN and the main OWIN package. And notice also it gives it this assembly. So it's of type startup. So it has a built-in configuration method here. And we need to add the stuff that's in yellow. So we need to add a reference to the identity package, and we need to add a reference to Microsoft.owin.security.cookies. So we're going to add those two references. So we'll add Microsoft.asp.net.identity. And owin.security.cookies. Okay. So we'll add those two references.
Oh, that's
So here's what happens. We want to enable cookie authentication. We also want to set up a default login path. And we'll just have to tweak that a bit because our page needs a file extension. So let's grab those 3 lines in yellow inside the configuration. And we'll paste them into our configuration method. So we're going to use cookie authentication, and here are the options. So our authentication type, so we can use an external cookie, a 2-factor cookie. Don't ask me what a 2-factor cookie is, I have no idea. The default is application cookie. And in our login path, I'm going to change this. So by default, this is going to /login. we want ours to go to login. It's not case sensitive, but I'll put it in this way anyway. And we need the file extension here. So what that means is if any user who's not authenticated tries to go to a page they don't have access to, by default, this is where they're going to get sent to. We don't have to manually redirect on every page. The startup class will do it for us using that login path variable. Okay. So we added those two lines and that function call. Use cookie authentication with those options. So our application has a whole bunch of other methods, like using OAuth tokens or an external sign-in cookie if we want to let users sign in somewhere else that's custom. But this should be all we need for our purposes. So we can build. And now we'll have to deal with our login code, right? Right now nothing happens when our user clicks login. So I can go to my page. I can put in admin password. But nothing's happening. There's no code on that button. So now we've got some additional code here when our user registers. So what we want to do, well, it says the code is highlighted. They didn't actually highlight. So what happens? Right now on our register page, let's just open it up, we're creating the user and printing a message. What we want to do instead, if our results succeeded, so I want to copy this block inside the result succeeded. We're going to do this instead. So we're going to create a context, use a cookie to set the identity, and sign the user in. Yeah, I know. The other thing is, this says redirect to the login page. I think we'll change that. I think this is actually going to do the login for us. So when a user registers, they're already automatically logged in. I'm pretty sure is what will happen. So I'm just going to comment out those two lines. Whoops. Got to copy. I'm going to copy those three lines here. And paste those into my success section instead. Now, it's not recognizing, and I need a semicolon there. It's not recognizing authentication properties, so we're going to need to make another reference up above. Doesn't know what this is. So I think the reference, let's just go look up above. Yeah, we're referencing ASP.NET Identity, but in order to use cookies, we need to reference the OWIN package as well. So we'll need to reference Microsoft.OWIN. I think .security. Once I add that, now it recognizes my authentication properties class. So we'll need this reference in blue I've got on line 11. So identity is used only for the registration, but OWIN is required for doing login and cookie management. So we'll need that reference here. So what we want to do, let's create a new page. I'm going to right-click my project and choose Add Web Form with Master Page. I'll just call it Main. We'll pick our Monday master. I'll just put in a title. The main menu. So we'll add a kind of a simple menu on here. We'll add a div, and we'll add a few sections on here. So put on a heading with maybe a couple of items. List group. Oops, sorry, that should be a UL, I think. Make a list group item. So I'll just create 3 sections here. One for departments, one for courses, so I'll just copy and paste that. And I've left out my list of links. So we'll create these as links. So I'll create 3 different sections, one for departments, one for courses, and then a third one for students. So this is just a static page. Whoops. This should say list and add. And then the last section will say students everywhere. So 3 sections, departments, courses, and students. The other thing I think I'm going to do in a minute is actually rename the pages. One of the students in the Wednesday class said they thought that my naming convention for the files is very confusing, having courses and course, departments and department. So we're just going to build this page. If we look at it now, So our main page will look something like this, right? So we've got links everywhere. So this is the page that we want users to go to once they're logged in. Once they register or log in, we want to take them here. This is like a menu page, and it should be private, along with all 6 of the pages we've already made. They should all be private. So now on my register page, when a user registered, that's where we want to take them. Let's direct the user after they sign up. I think this should work. I don't think we'll have to go make them go through the login, but we'll see. Now we do need our login code. Still nothing's happening here. So this just walks us through building a login form. We already have a login form. So here's the code that we're going to need. We're going to need these 3 references at the top. So we need to use identity, entity framework, and OWIN.security. So let's go ahead and add those 3 references.
Identity framework and security.
So we need Microsoft ASP.NET Identity, Microsoft ASP.NET Identity.Entity Framework,
And then security.
and Microsoft.OWIN.security. We'll need all of those. The other thing I should include is we should include a label in case the login's invalid. We need a label to print those messages on.
Can you go back to the CS code for a second? So
So we should add a label to the top, just like we had on our register page.
All right, okay, thank you.
Call it LBL status. And we'll give it a label danger, because if they log in successfully, we're not going to show them, we're just going to redirect them to our main page. We're only going to show this label if something's gone wrong with the login. So we can hard code the class in so it's got a red background. So nothing should show up yet. So we'll use that label if there's anything wrong with the login. So here's the code. We don't really need to do this. This is keeping the user there on the page. We're not going to keep the user here if they log in. So let's look at what's going on here. We're creating a new user store. We're using the user manager class. On register, we called the create method. Here we're calling the find method. So that will take the username and password. It will hash the password. It'll check that ASP.NET users table. And it will either return a user object or a null. If we don't find that user, our user object is going to be null. So then we'll print out a message. If our user is found, we're going to create an authentication cookie using OIN. We're going to sign them in saying is persistent is false, meaning it's not the login will expire. And then while this code redirects them back to the same page, we're going to take the user off to our main page instead. So I'm going to grab this block of code inside our sign in method. We'll copy all of that and we'll paste it into our button, our login button click event. And we'll have to make a couple of changes.
All the code?
Yep, that entire function. There's our login check. So we should make 5 changes of this code. What things should we change?
TXT username, TXT password.
Okay, so those will be the first 2, because we need to change the control names to match ours. What else should we change?
LVL status.
Richard?
Status.
Yep, so that should be LBL status. What? Yeah, we can erase.
The login, not ASPX.
Yep, so where should we take them instead?
Main.
Yeah, let's take them to the main page if we find a user with that username and password. So now we should be able to try this out. We should be able to put in an invalid login and get a message here, and we should stay on this page. If we put in admin and password, we should get taken to our main page.
That worked. It even registered me pushing enter as submit.
So if we log in now, tells me it can't find me. Even if I put in a proper username, but a bad password, I can't log in. Once I've logged in, knows who I am, and it takes me to the main page. So on our register page now, it should do the same. In their code, in the code in the tutorial, they said on register, well, register someone and take them to the login page. We don't really need to do that. On our register page, we should also just take them off to main once they're signed in. So if I go back and register in admin 3, yeah. The other thing we should probably add here, I don't think this is checking the confirmation. If I put in 2 passwords, I think it's going to sign me up anyway.
Yeah, it's not.
So we should add that ourselves. We could just add a compare validator onto the page. We should probably do that. So it signs me up, and now I'm off here. So we should clean that up. I'll just open register. So beside my confirm box, I want an ASP compare validator. We'll set run at equals server. So our control to validate is txt password, and our control to compare is txt confirm. Our operator is equals our error message, passwords must match, and our CSS class be label. So this should force the user to enter 2 passwords that are the same. I think this is all the properties we need, but we'll better check it out. Equal, not equals. Yeah, for some reason my code prompt's not coming up. I think you're right, that should be equal. So we better try this and make sure that it does work. Let's check it out in the browser. Go back to register. Yep, so I can't sign in. If my passwords are different,
yeah, it always gives it, it'll show up no matter what if they're not equal.
so there's our little validation check to prevent that problem. So we can register and we can log in, at least it looks like we can log in, but the only way we'll really know whether this is working, we're going to need log out. We're also going to need a way to secure our pages. Just because we've logged in doesn't mean that these pages are actually private, right? Right now those URLs are still available to anybody. We haven't actually secured those pages yet. And then the other thing we are going to want to do is make our menu dynamic so that we show either one set of links if the user's logged in and a different set of links if they're not authenticated. So we should have time to implement all of those things. So there's our login. We've done that. So the sign in method uses OWIN and creates a cookie. There's also a sign out method which we're going to need. In fact, they've given us the code for sign out. They've done it right on their login page. So the next thing we should do is build a log out page, put a link to it in the navigation, and there's basically the code we need. So we're going to get the current context and call sign out and take them back to the login page. So let's make a new form, new page. Now, you could use the master page. We don't have to for this one. It really doesn't matter because there's nothing going to be visible. The user will never see the logout page. I'll just choose web form with master page. We'll call it logout. We don't need any HTML on here. We can just go straight into the code.
Don't even need a title.
Nope. So we'll need the identity references. in order to be able to call sign out, we're still going to need these classes. So we still need these three classes: ASP.NET Identity, Identity Entity Framework, and OWIN.Security. So we'll need those three references at the top of the page.
Something I just don't quite get though, why do we have to go further down with the ASP? Why?
Not sure I understand your question.
Well, we have using ASP.NET Identity, then we have using ASP.NET Identity Entity Framework.
Because they're actually different packages, right? Identity, here if we look, Peter, we install the identity core. So you can use the identity core without using Entity Framework. Okay, so those are separate libraries. Okay, there's a dependency. If you use this one, you need the core, but you can use the core without using Entity Framework. Okay, like let's say you just wanted to store a set of usernames and passwords in your web.config file. You weren't using a database. You would need the core, but you wouldn't need Entity Framework. I think we do, because I'm pretty sure that we do, because yeah, we're using the get OWIN context. That's part of the OWIN security library. So then they've given us the code here. We could actually run it ourselves. So we've got, so on page load, log out. So HTTP context dot current, that gives us the current user. So we can call get OWIN context dot authentication. So now we can call authentication manager dot, it's got a built-in sign out method. So destroy the cookie, remove any variables we've put in the session, remove that user ID from memory. Take the user back to login. So this should be logged out. We won't really know if this is working until we protect some of the pages. Right? We'll know the redirection's working, but whether or not they're still signed in or not, well, we won't know until we put an authentication check on some of our files.
This is so much easier than it was with PHP.
So we'll build that. We should add a logout link to our nav bar. So we should open up our master page. So I'm going to open up my master page. And at the top in the navigation, let's add a new link to log out. Richard?
I'm not getting authentication manager for the other page.
Well, authentication manager is a variable. I created a variable.
Yeah, I see now.
Okay. So just add a log out link to your master page.
I got it. Got it.
So if I refresh my main page, I've got log out. Takes me here, so our redirect works, but until we actually secure some of these pages, we don't really know whether this works or not, right? I can still go anywhere in the application. All the pages are still public at this point. The other thing we can actually do is we can deal with this navigation. So we should have both a private nav and a public nav. We can use this same section of our master page, but we'll need a logic. So if the user's logged in, we want to show them these links. We could also put a link to our main page in here. And if the user's not logged in, we basically want to give them links to register and log in only. And we can hide these. So the first thing I'll do is just put in a link to main. Call it main menu, maybe. I know that page doesn't have a real purpose. It's just kind of like when you log into Blackboard, you get a home page with links into the different areas. So that's what we're doing here.
All you have to do is click the button. Don't you all you have to do is just click the front also?
That'll take you to the home page. So this page is going to be public. This link will always be here.
Okay.
This can be public. Okay. But everything else, all of these, users are going to have to log in to see. So let's add 2 more links, one to register and one to log in, and then we're going to split them up into a public nav and into a public list and a private list, and we'll have to toggle which one of these lists shows up, depending on whether our user's logged in or not. So I'll add 2 more links. The first one can go to register. And the second one can go to login. So our nav bar is rapidly growing. We've gone from 3 links to 7. However, if these 2 links show up, those 5 should be hidden, and vice versa. Right? This one will always be here and will always be active. So we can wrap these into 2 different sections, and then we can show or hide. Show one and hide the other. So we can use a simple tag. There's an ASP placeholder. I'll give this one an ID of PLH public. Let's run at equals server. And I'll just drag the closing tag after my login link. So the public placeholder holds those 2 links. We'll add a second ASP placeholder, which is placeholder private, and we'll put our 5 private links inside of it. Now, if I load the page now, you won't see any difference. These placeholder tags, they don't render any HTML. I can go ahead and refresh. You're not going to notice anything different. Right, if I inspect the element and view the source, we won't see anything here. The placeholder tag has no HTML output. So now how and where should we write the code that determines whether this is visible or this is visible?
On the authentication page.
Page load?
Yeah, probably on the page load of the master page. Every time the master page loads, we need to run it. So if we view the code, We don't have any code on here. So what we need to do is we need to make reference, we're going to need to reference our identity package or our OIN package to figure out if the user's logged in or not. So we'll need to reference OIN. I don't think we need the Microsoft.identity. I think we just need the ASP.NET. Oops.
Microsoft Own Security.
I think we just need this. Let me mull that over for a second. Do we need it? Security. Well, let's try it this way. I'm not sure. So we'll see. Determine which nav to show. If. So we'll use the HTTP context .current .user .identity has a property here, identity .is authenticated. So if our current user has an identity known by the OIN package and they are authenticated, what should we do?
Show the private.
Yep, so in this case, we'll make private visible and we'll make public invisible. Otherwise, we'll do the opposite. Hide the private. So now we're going to get a clue whether our login actually works or not. Because if our login actually works, we'll see that the navigation will change when we get directed off to the main page. So we can build that.
Oh wait, maybe. It remembered my being logged in.
So now let me go to my main page. So it says I'm not authenticated. Let's see what happens if we log in. Once we log in, it knows we're authenticated. If I log out, we get the public login.
Yep.
So that script will run on every page because we've got the master page there.
And then we also need to put in the
So if I log in, oops, I'll just log in. So if I go to that URL in Chrome, so I've logged in Firefox, I can still get here in Chrome. We haven't prevented users from being able to access those private pages. We'll do that in a minute. Pretty simple. So if I go in Chrome, I can load the page, but I'm not authenticated, so I get the public nav bar.
So you gotta get a redirect in there. And
Okay. So we're getting here. So this is a really easy way for us to check on any page, is our user logged in? So we've got the identity.is authenticated. We also have this neat built-in method called isInRole. So if we want to check a user's authorization, we just can check if the user is in role, for example, admin. That'll be a Boolean that'll return a true or false. So it'll tell us whether the user's in a role or not a member of a particular role.
Is there a way to keep the role in system, like permissions for 1-0 account or 1-1?
Well, that's how we do it. We use the is in role. So you just specify the name of a role in that function. You pass in the name of any role to is in role, and it'll tell you whether the currently logged in user is member of that role, yes or no. So what we need to do now is control access to these pages. If we look at our solution, I'm going to show you two ways of doing it. Okay? So what we want to do is our 7 private pages, course, courses, department, departments, main, student, and students, all of those should be private. We can actually manage this through web.config. It's super easy. If you open up web.config, we can just go down near the bottom. Now, we're going to just change access to our main page first. Here's how it works. If we add a location tag, so do this just before your closing configuration. You add system.web. Oops, sorry, in my location tag I want to say path equals. Now here I can either specify the name of a page or I can specify the name of an entire folder. We'll start by specifying our main page, but rather than preventing access to one page at a time, it will be easier if we put all the private pages in a subfolder. Then we can just secure the whole folder. So if we add new private pages, if we put them in that folder, they're automatically secure, which is much more efficient than specifying every page. We'll start in here, so I'll say main.aspx. And inside my system.web, there's an authorization tag. And in here, I've got allow and deny. So I can allow any anonymous user this way. So we can deny users, or we can deny roles. So we can say this page is available, but not only do you have to be authenticated, you also have to be a member of a certain role. And we can do that for a particular page or for a particular folder. So that's all we have to do to secure that main page. Now it means any anonymous user can't access it. Let's try it. So I'm logged in here in Chrome, right? I've got my nav bar. I can move around. I can go to my menu, loads. And sorry, I'm in Firefox. In Chrome, when I refresh, I get kicked back to the login screen, and I can see what page the user tried to access. Now we have 6 other private pages, so we don't actually have to write the code on the ASPX files themselves. We use web.config to manage this.
I got a 404 when I tried.
So how does it know to go to login.aspx? We didn't write a redirect here. Why did it go here when as soon as I enabled?
It automatically makes the assumption that you want to go live.
Good guess, but we have specified it somewhere in our code.
We did it in the authentication, so I think it will redirect the user there because...
We did. Which file? Which file?
Startup.
Right. Remember, we wrote the startup page, and in configuration, we said use cookie authentication, and one of those properties was what is the login path. So it will use whatever you specify here. Okay, so any file the user that we prevent a user going to, either because they're not authenticated or they're not in the proper role to access that page or that folder, that's what it'll use. Okay, so you can customize that. If you want to take them to your home page, you would just change that to default.aspx.
Is there a way to set them to every page where they don't have to write rights? User privileges?
Well, what page would you want to send them to?
Well, instead of a login, you can just do your account.
Yeah. Yeah, you could send them anywhere. But there's one default for the application. Now, we have 7 private pages, so we could copy this 6 more times and change the URL on each one. It's not a very efficient way of doing it. All right? So what we're probably better off doing is creating a subfolder and putting our private pages in there, and then we could just secure the subfolder. Might be a better idea. We're also going to have to change a few paths if we do this, though. Right? We'll break a few things by doing this. But I think that's a good idea. So I'm going to right-click my project. I'm going to choose Add a New Folder. And I'll just call this maybe Admin.
Can we use the main folder that all those files are in?
You can't no, you can't secure the main folder.
Okay, then.
So what I'm going to do is move. I can drag and drop. I'm going to move course and courses, as well as department and departments. I'm going to move my main page, and I'm going to move my 2 student pages.
Can you go back to your authentication?
Where?
Web document.
So in here, instead of just saying my path is main.aspx, my private path, I'm going to put in a folder name instead. So I'm going to change that to admin. This means if we want to make new pages and have them private, all we have to do is put them in the admin folder. They're automatically secure. So this is really scalable. We don't have to keep specifying for every new page, hey, this page is private. Just put it in a private folder, and the page will inherit those permissions. So change the location path. We also need to now change these links because all of these are inside of the admin folder. So in here, I'm going to put in a leading slash, meaning go back to the root. So all of our private links need to have slash admin slash in front of them. As well as our, our logout page doesn't. Our logout page is just in the root. So we'll just have a slash in front of logout. Logout's not in the admin subfolder. So all of our links need a leading slash, meaning go back to the root folder and then start traversing the path.
We don't want logout in the admin?
No, logout stays in the root.
Okay.
And same here, our top level link to default, that should also have a leading slash. So in case we're in the admin folder, we want to go out of the admin folder back to the root in order to get to the home page. We're going to have to change a couple things on the redirects too. You're right, Hayden.
Okay.
Unless it's relative.
Admin, Monday.
Slash.
So I'm going to save my change to web.config.
Admin slash.
On my login page, where we're redirecting to main, this now needs to be slash admin slash main. You don't necessarily need the leading slash here, but you certainly need the admin folder. We'll need to do the same thing on the register page, because register is in the root and main is in admin.
What about the ones that have a squiggly line slash?
It's the same. You could use the squiggly line. I haven't used it anywhere in mine.
I left it in there from previous.
So on our register page, we also want to load our admin. And now on our students and departments page, also if you used your lab, we'll want to open up students because, sorry, where did I do it? I did it in courses. The path to our little up and down arrows has now been moved, right? Because, so we used this code last week to add the image, and our path is images descending. Well, images is in the root folder, but these pages are now in the admin folder. So we'll need a leading slash wherever you've specified those little up and down arrows. If you completed the lab, you have them in your students, your courses, and your departments page. On the sorting event, you'll need to replace. You could also do a global find and replace. If you just did edit, replace, and replace in files, you could look for, you could search for images with a quote and change it to that and click replace all. That would replace all 6 instances. This should correct all of the paths. So I'm going to save all of those changes. And now our application should be fully secured. It should only be default, register, log in, and log out that are public. All of our other pages should be private. And I think we did all our paths correctly, but we better check. So I'm going to start from the beginning.
It won't redirect.
So I can get to the home page. I can get to register and log in. I shouldn't be able to get anywhere else.
Isn't it supposed to redirect?
Well, that's a 404 page. So if I try and load my department page, it takes me to log in, right? All of those pages now, by virtue of the fact that we've put them in the admin folder and we've secured the admin folder, I can't get to any of them.
But isn't it, when you directly inject main into the address bar, isn't it supposed to automatically redirect?
No, you would have to handle, that's for 404 handling. We haven't done that.
Okay.
So now I can log in and I can go anywhere as an authenticated user. I can get into all my pages. And now I fixed the path so my little arrows still work. I can go to the menu. I can add on any section. But all of those pages are private. So if I want any other private pages, all I have to do is make sure I create them in the admin folder. That folder's automatically private. Now I could override that if I want to allow, let's say there was one file in the admin folder that should be public, I would just create a separate location. Let's say I wanted adding student to be public for some reason. I would just do this, admin student.aspx, and I could say allow users star, meaning everyone. So all of the files in here are private, but this would allow me to override.
I thought you said the squiggly line
Yeah.
would look for it.
Okay. So this way I could override the permissions in one folder.
So what's the difference between star and question?
Star means all. Question mark means unknown. Right? If I say deny user star, that will, so question mark means unauthenticated. So if I add star, I'll never be able to log into the admin. I will never be able to get in there. Right? So question, it's a good question. Question mark means unidentified. Star means everyone. So we're denying, we don't want to deny everyone, we want to deny anybody who's not authenticated. Make sense?
I thought with regular expression, the question mark was like optional.
Sorry, I guess, you know what, I guess I should say it's not a regular expression. I said it was, right here. So here are our options, really, if I say that.
It's got a list of options.
Yeah, there are. No, it's not coming up with prompt. It should. So now we've completely secured this. We can sign up, we can log in, we can control who has access, we can log out. We've got both the private and public menu. So you should be able to use what we have here in your assignment, right? Your assignment will be similar in that there can be a public homepage. But really, when a user first gets to your site, really all they should get is something similar to this. Okay, like a splash page, register, login. That's it. Everything else should be behind that login wall. Okay. So most of what they've given you, so the link is here, so you can walk through it again. I'll put my code on GitHub for you. And again, we did a few things differently than what they did in the tutorial. So I'll also put the video walkthrough of today's class up on YouTube for you as well. Are there any questions? We do have a few minutes. If there's anything you'd like me to go over again, I can do that. If you're just getting an error, I can come and look at that after. Any questions?
Any labs?
No lab today. Next week, what we're going to deal with is error handling. So we threw a 404 error. We haven't dealt with that, so we'll deal with 404 and other errors next week. And again, Microsoft's given us an exception handling package that we can use that's built in a lot of functionality. They've given us a tutorial for using it. We'll go through. Have a good weekend, good week. I'll see you guys next Monday.